Hello, I'm Katrina Nolte, and I'm going to discuss the process of translation. And the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to translating is how many languages are there in the world. And according to How Many Languages Are There in the World by Stephen R. Anderson, published by Linguistic Society America, Etholog, considered the authority on the subject, currently holds 6,809 distinct languages, of which only 230 is spoken in Europe and 2,197 in Asia. Also, Etholog shows at least 10 distinct Romance languages spoken in France, including Picard, Gascon, Provençal, and several in addition to French. Considering that France is about the size of Texas, the relation between how many languages are there versus in the United States would probably be more than 10 here. Also, when Yugoslavia broke up, at least 3 new languages, Serbian, Croatian, and Bosnian, had emerged. This shows that languages are born and, in the same, die every day. And so, with dead languages come dead classics like Beowulf. So through translation, Beowulf and other such classics as Three Musketeers and Don Quixote get to be shared throughout. And according to Translation, New Dictionary of the History of Ideas by Soke Naki, translation has been practiced in many parts of the world for centuries and even millennia. The rendering of Buddhist texts into literary Chinese and the Latinization of the Bible in the first millennia are 2 instances of celebrated achievements in the long history of translation. So translation is important in order to keep these classics and cultural gems alive throughout society and to pass on this knowledge. And through that, there are the cultural understandings that come with them in addition to understanding technological advances. The representation of translation produces socio-political effects and serves as a technology by which individuals imagine their relation to the national or ethnic communities. Words carry with them the cultural meanings behind them. Without understanding the cultural meanings, the words are useless. So according to translation in the Encyclopedia Britannica entry, words do have overtones. They do stir up complicated reverberations in the mind that are ignored in their dictionary definitions. And so that takes me to one of the first challenges of translation. Words are more than just what the dictionary says. There's more behind them. And so I'm going to compare a couple of the dictionaries. Longship's Compact Dictionary, the word donzelle is shown to be a wench or a hussy, whereas in Collins's Concise Dictionary, donzelle is known as a young madam. Hussy and young madam are not the same. They have different cultural connotations with them. And so with cultural connotations and cultural uses to words, slangs come into being. So according to Slang Technical Dictionary of America, the word leadfoot is a person who drives fast, keeping a heavy foot on the accelerator. We all know what this is. However, would someone from a different cultural background who speaks a different language really understand the term leadfoot? And the answer is probably not. It would take their understanding of our culture to do so. This also takes me into idioms and phrases that we use every day, which translate to nonsense. For example, in France, there is "il fait un temps de chien," which directly translates to "it is the temperature of the dog." However, what it really means is that the weather is awful. That's not something that is intuitively known to us because we do not understand the culture. In an American Idioms Dictionary, one of our idioms is a chip off the old block, which means a person, usually male, who behaves in the same way as his father or resembles his father. This, again, to someone who does not understand our culture, would be a very strange phrase and difficult to translate. So it is important to understand the cultural history of the language in order to translate certain phrases. And so now I'll show you an online translator example, since that's what most of us use. So I'm going to translate, I don't like the color purple. And what that gives us is this. This is clearly gibberish because the translator does not understand conjunctions, such as I don't. It also mistranslated the word purple into pourpre. The correct translation for purple in French is violet. So online translators without external help from a translator don't really do much for you. And that takes me to understanding the language, the actual structure of it. For example, a well-known phrase in French, je m'appelle Katrina, would directly, translating, keeping the exact same word order, would mean I myself call Katrina. That doesn't really make a lot of sense or flow well. What we usually translate to is my name is Katrina, and that is the accepted translation. So you can see the differentiation in that. There's also various styles for translating. Translating a novel to translating a poem to songs are all different. Novels, it's important to maintain the meaning of the word and the associations with it. With poems, there are various considerations, whether or not the poem was written to fit a certain shape, or the rhyming and the melody and beats of it. The same goes for songs for the melody and beat. However, it's less flexible in that there is a finite number of beats, a finite time for the song. This all makes translating very difficult. And from that, we can go into the steps of translation. So the first part of translation is researching the topic of the text, just understanding and familiarizing yourself with the words. Then deciding upon how to translate it. This depends on whether it's a novel or a newspaper article and such and so on. Then there's reading through the text, marking unfamiliar words to research, and then decide upon a definition that fits the context. And then reading through the text, again, before actually making a draft so that the flow and the tone of the text is understood. Then the first draft is made. I recommend then rereading through the original text and the draft and making adjustments, and then having someone else read through the draft and making adjustments based upon their comments. Repeating these steps until you're satisfied or you meet the deadline for the translation is what I would recommend. This can take many, many revisions, but it's worth it. So in the end, translation is important because there are almost 7,000 languages in the world. And we all want to communicate and understand one another and share our knowledge, our cultures, and technologies. And there are many, many challenges that go along with translation, such as different cultural attachments to words and phrases. And so, in my opinion, the best way to understand a culture is through translation, which makes translation extremely important to the world. Thank you very much.